And you're recording? Okay, great. Welcome everybody to our meeting of the San Francisco Computational Design User Group. I'm Dennis. Unfortunately, Cesar and Alberto are still away. They're in Europe traveling, but I'll give the introduction for our guest here. But first, we have a few announcements. So as always, we have our blog and email, and you can sign up for notifications of all of our current events. And we're on Twitter too. And so then a few announcements. We do have a few upcoming events that we'd like you guys to be aware of. You okay? Yeah. Is it not? Click, does that work? There we go. Okay, so upcoming we have, Christian, go on. Yes, you can sign up for our meetings. All the attendees are muted. And today's speaker, which I'll get to in a second, is Marcelo Scamballeri. Go on. So upcoming events, there's this recalibration event that's actually later this week in Mexico City, for those of our viewers who are there. We also have an event, Interpolation, which is in New York. If any of you will be around New York next week, they have this in October 28th. The core studio of Thornton Thomas Steady will be having some workshops related to computational design. There's also the AEC Hackathon coming up in next month. Be sure to sign up soon. It's really exciting. And then, as you all know, Autodesk University is coming up from the 13th to the 15th. And I believe some of our committee members are going to be giving presentations there as well. Moving on. We're in the San Francisco Computational Design User Group is working on putting together a workshop about Python and VR with design morphine. As we hammer out the details of that, we'll let you guys know. But that's something that we have in the works. Okay. So there will be no meeting in November as usual, since most people will be away at AU. So our next meeting will be in early December. And we'd like to thank Ideate for the food. We'll thank HOK for the microphone, Genzer for the webinar, and SOM for having us here in the office. So now our speaker, it's my honor to introduce Marcelo Scamballeri, excuse me, sorry. Marcelo is a really prolific speaker. He's got great enthusiasm. He's always really interesting. Unbeknownst to him, he actually taught me Dynamo. I actually learned Dynamo from one of his AU presentations, A Practical Intro to Dynamo. So really excited to have him here. So come on up. Welcome, Marcelo. Yep, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Okay. Hello, everyone. Let me switch. Hello, hello. Hello, San Francisco. All right. Okay, Marcelo Scamballeri. I live in Los Angeles. I work in Los Angeles, technically. I don't live in Los Angeles. Can we, after I'm done with my little monologue, can we dim the lights a little so we can, okay, can you hear me okay? Okay. We're live streaming. Anyone online? Is anyone logged in for live streaming? Yeah. Nice. Okay. All right. Welcome, everyone. Dynamo San Francisco User Group. Awesome. Thank you for having me here. I'm going to be teaching a class at Autodesk University, and I thought it would be a good idea for me to practice one of my sessions, and the perfect spot is here. I'm going to be talking about intro to C# for customizing Dynamo nodes. Okay, so what's that? Yeah, okay. So I'm going to jump right into it. I've got, what, an hour, 15 minutes? About? All right. My presentations are really informal. I usually don't talk to user groups. I'm usually kind of up on the main stage. Okay, so you can dim it now. I'm usually in front of a lot of people, but even in those, I like to keep it really informal. So if you have a question, or you want to heckle me up here, or you want to complain, or you want to tell me a love story about Dynamo, whatever, I'd love to hear it. I'll stay over here so I can see. All right, so we're gonna get to know each other over the next hour and a half, around 15 minutes. This is kind of a dry run for my presentation, getting started with customizing Dynamo for non-programmers using C#, specifically zero touch. So I'm gonna assume everyone in here has some experience with Revit and some experience with Dynamo. Is that true? Can I start there? Okay. All right. Now, how many people have done C# coding to customize Dynamo? Okay, that's perfect, because this is going to be for non-programmers. Okay, so don't worry if you have no programming experience or if you're a Python expert, it's good. We're going to start from the very beginning. How to use C# code to customize Dynamo. How to make a custom node. Has anyone heard of the term zero touch? Okay, zero touch is just a fancy word for using C# coding to make a custom Dynamo node. Okay, all right, that's really it. All right, so it's going to be informal. I may talk to myself up here because I got to make mental notes as I move forward because I'm trying to get my class together. So I kind of do this. Usually when I teach a class at Autodesk University, I have a place where I kind of present it and vet it out. So just kind of bear with me, but it's informal. Be like, hey, Marcelo, you know, it'd be great if you mentioned that before that. You know, I don't know, whatever. All right, cool. It's all in it together. You mean when I'm actually teaching it? You'll have to look. Just go to the AE website and look that up. I can't remember. I'm teaching 4 classes, so I'm sorry. I wasn't prepared for that question. All right, cool. So it's really informal. I'm going to run around up here. I'm so glad I have these remote microphones because I'm going to. All right, so you know what? I'm going to have to zoom into some of my code because it's going to be hard to see. So learn how to create custom nodes using C# and zero touch. That's what we're going to do. Learn to have fun with Dynamo. Does anyone have trouble with that right now? No? Okay, good. No? All right, well, if not, we'll get you to have fun. Learn how to use custom nodes from the package manager. Yeah, all right. Okay, so those are the learning objectives. That screen's kind of fuzzy. There's nothing we can do about that? Yeah, that's me. So if you look here, this says, we're just going to get right into it, okay? And I like to use fun examples. So my examples are kind of quirky. So just bear with me, okay? Open your mind, right? Because we're starting from scratch, right? I built a cow in Revit. Okay, so if I'm going to do that, then I'm going to make some quirky examples for zero touch. By the way, this is the first time I've ever taught a text programming class in front of anyone. This is the first one ever. You're welcome. So this says, Marcelo has worked on many BIM projects over the last 20 years. So December will be my 20th year at my company. Yeah, John Martin Associates, Los Angeles. Whoa, yeah. So you know what people always ask me when I tell them that? They're like, whoa, how old are you? They just, boom, right, comes right out, right? So I thought, why don't we make a Dynamo node where you can find out Marcelo's age? How's that sound, right? Doesn't have to be Revit, does it? Let's do that, okay? We'll kind of dig down into Marcelo's age. We'll display it, right? You gotta wear it proud, and then we'll talk about how to modify it, right? With input ports, okay? So let's do it, ready? Okay, so I'm gonna try not to say it's easy because I got in trouble for saying that. This is probably my 30th presentation. Well, this will be my 30th presentation, so I kind of do this all the time. But believe it or not, I get nervous every time. Kind of like first time all over again. Okay, so what you want to do if you want to build a node in Revit, in Dynamo, what you got to do is get Visual Studio. That will be the platform on which you program your C# code into, okay? There are some basics. There are some super basics that I won't go over, which is how to start a project, okay? That's in my handout, which everyone will have access to once the class is over, which will be probably at the end of November, okay? So you can check that out. How do you open a project? How do you save it? Okay, so let's just pretend we did that. I'm not gonna do that. And this is a lab too that I'm teaching, so I've got to make sure that it can be done in 75 minutes. All right, so get Visual Studio. Visual Studio community is free if you've never done any programming before. And by the way, I'm in the middle of writing a Dynamo book. It's got about 150 pages. And they're basically one-page scenario, summaries like this, okay, which is just you want to do something, how do you do it? Just one page. They're called like the Dynamo cheat sheets. So I always work in this format. If you've ever seen or Googled my website, my blog site, or just Google my name, you'll find it. It's always in this format. So my programming examples are in this same format. It's just a series of code. It'll look like this. I actually have it here. It's I know I'm jumping around a little bit. I kind of apologize, but I have to kind of think as I go about this. Okay, so this is the one that we're gonna do. How to get Marcelo's age. That's all the code that does it. Okay, so it's in the same vein as the cheat sheet. It's just what code do you have, and then what does it look like in the. I'll have to zoom that in. It's kind of fuzzy. What it looks like in the library in Dynamo, and then what the nodes actually look like. Okay, so let's build this. Yeah, so exciting. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna try to get through 8 coding examples. All right, in about an hour and 10 minutes. Okay, let's see if we can do it. Visual Studio. Okay. Get Marcelo's age. Okay, so. All right, I'm gonna start typing a lot, but then as we move forward, you'll get the concept, so I will type less. Okay, this is how it works. You've got using statements up here, which make references over here. Gosh, this is blurry. There's nothing we can do about this, right? Anyway, there's references over here that basically reference in all the Revit database or whatever database you're using. In this case, it's gonna be my friends because they know my age, okay? But it's just whatever reference you're bringing in. There's a bunch of using statements over here just to help simplify coding, kind of standard boilerplate stuff. All right, so this is where it really starts. Okay, C# coding, you need a namespace. The namespace is basically like the name of your book. Okay, and a namespace, you can name it whatever you want. I called it my library folder because that's going to be the first thing you see, or the second thing you see in class. A class is like the chapters in your book. Okay, so we got the namespace that hold classes, and the classes then hold what we're going to call methods. The method that we create is the node that's going to show up in Dynamo. Got it? The method is the node. That's key. Okay, so let's make a method to find Marcelo's name. Okay, so the first thing you got to do is we got to make a method. Let's see if I can do this because I got to balance this now. Okay, the first thing to do to make a method is you got to make a make it public. Okay, you call it static. This is not too big of a deal. All right, so you say I'm going to make my method. I'm going to give it a name, but first you have to give it a type. Like, what am I returning? Marcelo's age and most ages are done in integers, right? I mean, you don't. So hey, what's your age? What's your name, sir? Mark. Hey, Mark. Well, that's cool. Hey, Mark. What's your age? You wouldn't say it's 43.658, right? Sorry, I don't get offended. I just threw a number out there. Okay, right? Or I don't know what the little, the little guys, right? You say, how old is he? Oh, he's 18 months. He's 24 months. I don't know. Where do you stop? 36 months? 48 months? I don't know. Whatever. Anyway, your age should be an integer. At least that's what I'm choosing it to be. Okay. So, so got it. So you say public static. You give it a type. C# is very type-based. If you're declaring something, you better give it a type. But it's very Dynamo-ish, isn't it? I mean, you don't feed in a string that wants a number, right? Dynamo goes, and it turns yellow. Yeah? So it's the same thing, okay? So int, and then we're going to name the node. This is the name of the node. This is fun because you can name the node whatever you want. I'm going to call it Marcelo age node. Good enough, right? And then you put these little brackets. And then once you do that, that means if nothing's in here, this is a method that's running. If there's nothing in here, that means there's no input ports coming in. It's just gonna, you drop the node, it's gonna run. Got it? No input ports, okay? Did I lose anybody yet? We're making a method. You declare it. What's gonna come out of the output port, it's gonna be an int. The name of it, Marcelo's age node, and we put these brackets, parentheses, and it's blank in there, which means no input port. Follow me so far? Okay, good. That any method has to be encapsulated in curly brackets. So we're just kind of setting up the method. We haven't actually really done it yet. So a method says, I'm gonna run, send something out, okay? Now we actually need to establish Marcelo's age. Okay, so what we do is we want to create a variable. So we do that. When we want to create a variable or an object, we have to tell it what is it going to be, the type. So we just say int, and we could say Marcelo age. That's what we're going to return out. Okay, and you just say equal. Now here, if you can understand this next part, you're going to really understand C# coding inside of Dynamo. Okay, so we now need to drive down and understand Marcelo's age. In order to do that, we have to gather up the data that stores it. And then we just have to drive down into the details. You got it? So whether it's a Revit wall or it's Marcelo's friends, right? So you don't walk up to me and you're just going to say, hey, Marcelo, what's your age, right? You got to ask my friend, hey, do you know Marcelo? Yeah, I know Marcelo. Okay, let's introduce me to him. Okay. Hey, Marcelo's one of your friends? Okay, Marcelo. What's your age, right? So we're driving down. So in this case, we're just going to type friends. Okay. Friends. You with me? And then we're going to use the most powerful thing on the planet for coding, at least in my opinion. Anyone guess what it is? A period. Okay. That thing right there. Okay. We're going to use that all the time. You get an object, you put a period on it, it starts to open up more things for you. That's basically it, right? For all you coders out there, I know I'm using kind of simple language. That's the way it works. See, now this is what happens when you like get a Revit wall. You're like, oh my gosh, I can get the height, the length, the width. So you see my friends. Oh, Marcelo's in here. There's also Mark in there and Scott. Okay, so I want Mark. I want Marcelo. And of Marcelo, I'm gonna push a period again. I'm gonna find out what else there is. Oh my gosh, I got his age, I got his height, whether he knows Dynamo or not. That says location. Whoa, this is all this data I want. So in your case, you want what? Marcelo's age, right? There you go. And then the data is coming from a reference that I pre-made. So we're not talking about Revit right now. I made a reference that stored all this data, and I stuck it in the references. So when you start doing the Revit database, the Revit API reference is already made for you, and it's already there. Okay. All right. So, all right. Is everyone still with me? So you're like, okay, this finds out my age. Is that what it is? Well, this method says, okay, I'm going to calculate Marcelo's age, but it doesn't end there, right? You're like, okay, that's awesome. What are you going to do with it? Well, you got to get it out of this method. You got to get it out. So there's a famous word. It's called return. Okay. So you got to return it out. So you're always going to return. And whatever you return becomes anyone want to guess? What does this become if I return this out? Anyone want to guess? Oh, by the way, first of all, I'm sorry. What do I want to return? You think? Marcelo age. It's right there. And then I put it like that. Now, can anyone guess what that would become in the custom Dynamo node? Output port, right? Okay, are there any input ports? Nope, so once we lay this thing down, boom, it's gonna run. Okay, got it? All you do go like this. So you say build solution, kick down on the bottom, it says build succeeded. Okay, so in this case, since we're not using the Revit database, then I'm just gonna use Dynamo Sandbox just to get Dynamo open quicker. Okay, then you go like this, node. Has anyone ever seen this add library import? This add library import will add it in zero touch node. So what happened when we compiled it and built it, it put a DLL in a folder that you preset. So all you have to do is reload that DLL. That's one way to do it. That's how we're going to do it today. But ultimately what you can do is build a package and then it'll just reload every time. Okay. So for now, I like to keep it kind of raw so you can see. So we were here, zero touch, Marcelo's age, start, bin, debug. It's sitting there, yeah. Does it sit there? Yeah. Check the date, 6/25. I always check the date, always check the date, always check the date, always check the date, okay? That looks good. Boom, there it is. Now this is the name of our DLL. This is the name of our namespace. This is the name of our, anyone? Oh wait, sorry. This is the name of our method. Boom, there it is. so pretty. Does anyone want me to touch this? There we go. 43. Okay. Now that just runs, right? There's no input. Everyone clear on how to make that? Okay. All right, let's close this. Let's do it again, but this time let's make an input port. Yeah, it's super easy. Okay, so now you say, you know what, Marcelo, maybe you have a fudge factor on your age. That's what I thought of, right? So you don't always tell everyone you're 43. Depends who you're talking to, you know. You're like, no, this age. So we'll put a fudge factor in here and it can subtract up, right? You want to subtract it. Or I mean, maybe you want to add, I don't know. Okay, so we're gonna do now, because it's type-based, we're gonna make another object. You have to declare a type. So you're gonna probably do another int. Yeah, you wouldn't subtract like a fraction decimal point from your age, right? So it's like maybe it's 10 years or whatever. So that's another int, okay? Then we're gonna say fudge factor. Good with that name? Okay, can anyone guess what that would become when we make the node? That name? What would it become? Yell it out. What? Input port, right? Now, I can leave it like that, but you can set a default too. You know, like when you put down a Dynamo point and it says default 000. Yes? Anyone default? Okay. You don't have to put a default, but you can. If you want to put a default there, then you just say equals and you can put a default. I don't know, maybe you do default at 0, right? Because maybe you don't, right? I don't know, you want default at 0? Maybe you should default at 10, I don't know. But I'll default at 0, okay? Let's build that again. Oh, almost done. Now, Marcelo's age is now going to be my age minus my fudge factor. Yeah? You got that? So now when I return it, my input port will affect the final result. You got it? Okay, let's build it again. Here we go. So this mouse, I'm going to have to stand and do it against my leg. Okay, here we go. So build succeeded. Here we go. Dynamo Sandbox. Okay, here we go. Boom. New. Add DLL. Yes, we're going to add it each time. Here, check the date again. 28. Open. Name of DLL. Name of namespace. Name of class. Name of method. Yeah? Boom. Oh, look at that. Oh my gosh. Now we have a fudge factor, right? Defaults at 0 because that's what we put in, equals 0, right? So now this is what it's going to stand at, unless I may add a fudge factor. I don't know. Depends who I'm talking to. You know, then boom, you know, that's actually my real age. I don't know. I mean, because this will support even a negative. Maybe that's my real age. You know, I don't know. Depends who I'm talking to, right? But everyone understand? Does that seem kind of simple? How to make a custom node, right? Okay, there's all nuances when you deal with the Revit database, but that's basically it. Then you say it again? I'll say it again. This is the name of your DLL. This is the name of your namespace. That's the name of the class. That's the name of the method. You got it? Yeah, cool. The input port is what you put in those parentheses. The output port, it's just as the type, is what you say it. It's what you return. Got it? How easy is that? I don't know. I think it's easy. Not so bad, right? Okay, now, you want to touch the Revit database? All right, let's do the Revit database. Let's come up with an example. And by the way, if you have a question, shout it out. Okay, so that took 15 minutes. Good. At least we got through methods. We don't need to talk about methods anymore. Okay, kind of taking mental notes. Okay, now let's talk about getting this one, which would be the category. Okay, now the examples I'm going to show you today, you already have out-of-the-box nodes to do, but I want to show you how it's done here, okay? So that you can kind of think about how you can manipulate the database. Maybe you don't want the category, maybe you want something else. I don't know if it's pinned or not, right? I mean, I don't know if there's a Dynamo node for that yet, but you understand what I'm saying, right? You just push that magical period and then more things pop up. Yeah, okay, cool. So let's do it. Ready? Here we go. All right, so in this case, okay, so the way it works with the Revit database is, oh my gosh, what is going on? Whew, I got a little nervous there, like everything disappeared on me. Okay, so the only difference is that you're adding in a reference of of the Revit API. Okay, that's it. All right. Okay. Can everyone recognize this now? This is our namespace. This is our class. You just have to put this so it doesn't show up twice. Anyway, you don't really need to know much about that. Okay, and this here is the name of our method. So I won't go over on how to do it again, but do you see what you do is, do you remember when we did the int? When you want to declare, you have to declare a type. You see this category? Yes, I'm gonna need some head nodding or something because it's hard to see it. Okay, so do you remember when we did Marcelo's age and returned it? You set a type. So what are we returning in this case? We're gonna return a category, right? So then you have to declare in the method, you have to declare the type. You got it? In this case, it just happens. I spell this all out, by the way. Revit.elements.category. Okay. Man, some people just put category. I spell out the whole thing. This get category is the name of the node / name of the method. And then in here is what is coming in as input ports. Yes. Remember the input ports is inside parentheses. In this case, we're feeding in a type, which is Revit.elements.element. So it says in Revit element. We'll be using this a lot. So that means this particular node, we're constructing it so that when we feed in a Revit element, we can do like select model element, select model element. Yeah, we feed it in, it's going to kick out a category, right? That's all it's going to do. But it's super cool because now we're talking with the Revit database. Okay, super easy. Sorry, I'm going to try not to say that. Here's the way it works. Okay. Really easy. I had my cheat sheets here. I must have lost it. I had cheat sheets here. Hold on, let me just get these cheat sheets. I got to make a note to save this back. Okay, so what you do, it's really easy. Yeah, darn it. Okay, so what comes in again? The element, right? So that's all we need to examine to pull a category. Yeah? So like pretend you fed in Marcelo's friend, then all you would need to do is find out which one's Marcelo and which one is the age. Yeah? So all we have to do is examine this and find the category, right? Okay. By the way, we're going to go from simple to more difficult. Okay. So this is kind of as easy as it gets. So I'm going to say in Revit element. Do you know what in Revit element is? Can anyone remind me what in, because it's hard to keep track all the time. What's the in Revit element, that object? Anyone? The one, what? The in Revit element is the one, input port. Okay, keep thinking that. What is, because you have a lot of variables flying around. In Revit element, and you can name it anything you want, is the one coming in from the input port, right? Okay, now what's the magical button we push? Period. Look at all this beautiful stuff. Oh my gosh. Pretty, right? You don't need a degree in computer science to do this, do you? We got bounding box, curves, faces. There it is, get category, bang, right? Close that off with a semicolon, right? And you got it. You're like, yeah, you sort of got it. Okay, does anyone remember what we got to do? We got to return it. There's two ways you can return it. Just for time's sake, I'm going to return it this way. I can just say return that whole thing, and then it'll just return the whole thing. You got it? If you don't like that, what you can do is, because this is a category, you can make another object like this. First, anytime you make an object, you gotta state the what? The type. So I'm doing category, right? And then I would say, like, I don't know, out category maybe, right? Is equal to that. And then I would return what? What would I return in this case? Out category. Okay, so I guess I'll do it that way for now, but you don't have to do it that way. Semicolon. Okay, I'm going to build solution. I'm going to hope it succeeded. It did. Now in this case, I can't use Dynamo Sandbox only because I have to actually open up Revit. This is what's going to take a little while. So if you have questions, this is the best time. Anytime you build a node and it touches the Dynamo database, yes, you have to open up Revit, and yes, you have to open up Dynamo. And then when you want to build it again, you have to first close Revit, or close Dynamo and close Revit. And then when you build it, you have to open Revit and open Dynamo again. It's just the way it is. Everyone okay with that? That's probably Python's advantage, one of them. But for C#, you have to do that. Okay, so deal with it. Yes. Yes. How do you link API with Visual Studio? With a reference. With a reference. That's it. In the references. You can find it. That's in my notes. I wasn't going to go over that. That's in the. It's in one of your Revit folders. So I'm just going to say somewhere. You go find it. Google it. You'll find it. Okay, new. That didn't take too long, right? Okay, here we go. So I'm just going to put down a. Gosh darn it! I would probably move a little faster if I didn't have this on. Okay, here we go. But you know what? We punched through. Okay, here we go. I'm going to be building a lot of architectural walls. Okay, here's an architectural wall, right? I'm going to do Revit. I'm going to do Dynamo. I'm going to open Dynamo. I'm going to load my DLL. I'm going to wire in. I'm going to pick that. I'm going to wire it in. And what should that node say? You got to yell it out because where's all the energy here? You're not excited about this stuff? I'm turning you into programmers. Holy smokes, you know how much pain and suffering? I had over 100 examples. I had to cut it down to 8. Yeah? Okay, so holy smokes. My goodness. Okay, so anyway, new. Here we go. Am I gonna load this in every time? I am. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna try. I really am. So here we go. Category. Okay, here we go. Debug. Okay, here we go. Boom. There it is. Okay, I won't go over what these are again because you know. Get category. Bang. Yeah. So Revit. I need to feed in what? What? Yeah, a model element, right? So I'm gonna pick this. I'm gonna pick the wall. I'm gonna go like that. I'm gonna wire this in. I'm going to roll it out and cross my fingers, and boom, there goes wall. How cool is that? Right? You want to see that code again? Oh my gosh. You want to see the code again? That went pretty smooth. That took 9 minutes. Oh, we're doing good. You want to see the code again? Why? Because of that thing right there. Yeah. Got it? You see that? Do I need to emphasize the power of that thing? Okay. Get an object, press period. It's going to expose a lot of stuff for you. Okay, good. Okay, now this is named for a reason. This is what we call a wrapped Revit element. Okay, now we're going to have to talk about Revit API and Dynamo speak. Okay, so the way it works, I'm going to at AU, I might get a box actually, like a wrap box. But Dynamo only speaks one language. It doesn't understand Revit. It has to actually take a Revit model and it has to wrap it in a pretty package, in a pretty bow. Okay, when it does that, sometimes it writes with a Sharpie marker on the outside and it says, this is your category. You are a wall. You have a bounding box of this and other things, okay? So when we press period, we only saw a few things. Did you notice that list wasn't like 500 things long? There's so much with a wall. Okay, because it happens to be wrapped in this Dynamo shell. Why is that done? There's a lot of reasons why. So when we brought the Revit element in, it was still wrapped in that shell. So when we press period, we only got a few options, just the ones that happen to be Sharpie markered on the outside. But the beautiful thing is on the next example, we're going to get the ID. The ID is on the inside. So when it comes in, we're going to say, oh, we're not going to press period on you yet. We're actually going to unwrap you first. So we're going to take the bow and unwrap it and pull the model out. And we're going to set it down. And then we're going to press period on that. And when we do that, we're going to get hundreds of possibilities. Do you understand the wrapping concept? Okay, so wrap, unwrap. So now we're going to get the ID, but the ID is not written on the outside of the shell. It's written on the inside. They happen to call that element on the inside the internal element, okay? The internal element. So instead of pressing get category, we're gonna press internal element, got it? And then we're gonna see the magic. Okay, everyone's still kind of following me, like conceptually? You're not gonna remember all the picks and clicks, but conceptually, I want you to kind of follow me, yeah? Okay, so let's unwrap that element. Yeah, super cool. Super cool. Okay, here we go. So we got Revit element. Okay, in Revit element, I'm going to be doing this a lot. In Revit element. No, we're not going to get the category. No. Nope, we're not. We're going to scroll down to something called internal element. Got it? The internal element, it unwraps it. Now when we press a period on that, it's going to expose all the goodies that's inside that box. Yeah? Okay. So it's called unwrapping. Unwrapping. It's a fancy term for unwrapping. Don't let anyone tell you it's complicated. Is that complicated? Just one more period. Internal element. Ready? Here we go. You want to see all the goodies in there? Awesome. Watch this. Oh my gosh. Category happens to be there too. ID, document, get type, group ID, phase, location, level, name. Oh my gosh, are you pinned or not pinned? Holy smokes, I'm going to have myself some fun tonight. So I'm only getting ID, but you get it, right? Okay, sorry, I'm getting excited about this stuff. There it is, ID. Boom, done. Sort of done. We got to return it, right? Now, we could say return again here. Because we turned Autodesk Revit.db.element ID, we can return just this, okay? And I'll explain kind of what that means later. So I'm not going to make a separate object every time. Is everyone okay if I just say return here for time's sake? All right, everyone cool with that? But you know, if you don't want to do that, you make a separate object and then you say return that object. Yes, that's all it is, okay? Cool, I'm going to run this. I'm going to double check we're good. I'm going to run this. Build solution. Now, I did not need to rewrap it, and I'll explain why I didn't need to rewrap it, okay? But for now, just say we unwrapped it, we exposed the goodies, it happens to be an element ID, we happen to set out the element ID as a type, which is a very important thing. It's not always the case, that's why we didn't need to wrap it. And then, boom, we kick it out. I'm going to build solutions. Okay, now I have to open Revit again. You don't have to close Visual Studio. Okay, I'm going to do this, and while I do this, any questions about this? Yes. Let me just say this. I'm not going to answer any Python questions here.
No, it's just I can use syntax to learn C#.
Is your question, can you use Python in Visual Studio? Yeah. I'm not going to answer that because I'm going to mess it up because it's nuanced. There's a whole, I'm only talking about C# today, sorry. Yes. You don't have to use Visual Studio. You can use another compiler. I mean, I'm not a computer science major, but you can look into that, but you don't need Visual Studio. You could use another compiler, yes. Very good question, and we will drive into that. Awesome. Yes. I will explain what exactly that means in a little bit, okay? Everyone cool? We're only 6 minutes into this next one. This is awesome. Okay. Build another wall. What's your name? Yeah, Daniel. Okay, Daniel, we will get to your question in a minute. This question was asking about the type and the Revit Autodesk.revit.db versus the Revit.elements.elements. We'll get into that in a minute. It has to do with the definition of what is wrapped and what is not wrapped, but a very good question. In fact, I'll make a mental note to explain it before I get to this point, okay, in the lab. So, what do we expect when we open Dynamo, load it, pick model element, load in the model element? Anyone? What do we expect to see? The ID. Check that date. I keep saying that because I've gotten burned before. Get ID. Revit element, Revit selection. I suppose these could be preset ones I open up, but then I'm debating if I do that, then if I do that, then it could cause some confusion. Did you get it? Okay, here we go. Moment of truth. Whatever this pops, better match that. Yes? Boom. Yeah? Cool. Now this just happens to be a night you like, woohoo, right? There's a custom node that does that, Marcelo. I mean, an out of the box node that does that, of course. But we just pulled the ID. We unwrapped that thing, right? We looked at the internal element. We got the ID. But you don't have to get the ID. You can get all those other beautiful things. Yes? And you return those with their specific type. Any questions about that? No? Okay. You want to make it progressively harder? Just going to keep going up the ladder. Okay. No questions? Okay. All right. So this so far, and then if anyone wants to comment kind of on our pace or the, like how we're doing this, you know, feel free. Like if it makes logical sense to kind of step this way, right? Because I can't go this and tell you how to build a structural building with a bunch of framing, right? Using API, using Dynamo nodes. I mean, the code would be this long, right? We gotta work up to it, yeah. Now, next, I probably should be showing the corresponding. Make a note of that. I should be showing the corresponding the things here. So this is the handout. I plan to actually print this on and laminate it so that everyone can have like the 8 and 7. Okay, so we did that one node. We did this one, right? Wrap Dynamo element, right? We didn't use the internal element. We just got the category right off the element when it flew in, yeah? That was the wrapped information on the outside that was Sharpied on, yeah? Okay, the next one, we actually opened up the package, pulled out the internal element, hit period on that, and pulled the ID out. Are we all following me? Okay, let's go to another level of complexity. At this point, we've only read the database, right? How about this? What if we actually take that internal element? Everyone knows what the internal element is now. That's the unwrapped thing inside the Dynamo package. And instead of reading from it, let's write to it. Let's change a parameter. Let's change the database. What do you say? Okay, now that adds another level of complexity, which is something you need to wrap it in, which is called a transaction. But it's really not that difficult, in my opinion. Okay, so this next one is get offset parameter in an, no. You know what? I might skip this. I'm going to skip this only because you got the, all this does is get, I'm going to skip this. I'm making a mental note. I should have 7 examples because this is just a repeat in concept of what we're doing, which is what I talked about. This gets the base offset parameter of a wall, but that is just as easy as getting the ID. Okay, so in concept, it's the same, right? We unwrap, we pull internal element, press period, pull out a value, like an ID. So I'm going to scrap this. I'll go to the next one, which is we actually pull out a parameter and then change it. Okay, that in concept, that's actually different. Let me think about this and timing. Okay, so let's change the base of the wall. Okay, cool. This is how it works. Yeah, I want to see it? Change the database. So this one, we got to close this one. And thank you for letting me kind of talk through this. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mark, Enrique, I appreciate it. And you get to see a work in progress. Okay, so this says, so I'm not going to get this out, but it says public static, yeah? We're returning an element. We're returning a wrapped element. So this is what this means, Revit.elements.element, okay? This means that we're actually returning a wrapped element. That's the way Dynamo, that's the category for Dynamo to say it's a wrapped Dynamo element. I know it's confusing, but if it says Revit.elements.element, that is the wrapped one, okay? When it's unwrapped, it's called Revit.db, Autodesk. Shoot. I don't remember exactly what it is, but it's a little different. Okay, so that means it's wrapped. Oh, okay, cool. Thank you. Maybe I will do it. Maybe I will do it. I don't know. Thank you. Okay, so these are the input ports. This time we need 2 things. Okay, we're flying in the Revit element that you know and love. Okay, now this is called Revit.element.element because that means it's wrapped. Okay, I wish we could call it something else, but it's not. Revit.elements.element means it's wrapped. Yes, it means it's wrapped. Okay, in Revit element, that's the one we know and love. We also need a value, which will be the value we're going to change the parameter to. Yeah, so now we're feeding in a value. It's going to be a double. Okay, double just means it's not an integer. It means it could be 10.875, whatever. It stands for double precision. But this is the in value. Yeah, it's kind of like the set parameter node, right? Feed in the wall, you feed in the value of the new parameter. We'll just hard code the parameter name here. Okay, this is how it works. Okay, so now because we're doing set, yeah, because we're changing the Revit database now. Okay, remember that internal element? We change it. Whenever you change the Revit database, you must always wrap it in a transaction. What's a transaction? A transaction is just something that the Revit API needs to know that it's getting changed, because there's a lot of things. It has to register the ID in Revit. It has to put it in the undo list. You know, when you do undo, those are basically transactions you're undoing. Okay, so you wrap it in this transaction. You change. You open the transaction, change, close the transaction. Okay, that is always universally the same. So you don't need to type out the code. You can just copy and paste it. Okay, all it does is this just gets the document, the active document, and this opens up the transaction. But you don't care about this. You know, you could care less what this says. Just copy and paste it. Okay, that opens the transaction. Got it? Open transaction, standard stuff. Okay, you with me? I'm not going to explain this. Okay, you Google it if you want to know all the ins and outs. Okay, so now we're going to actually do it. All right, so now if you remember, the parameter that we want to get and set is not on the wrapper, right? Most things aren't. They're on the internal element. So we got to pull the internal element out. We got to grab the parameter. We got to set it. Okay, so let's do that really quick. All right, so I'm gonna do it again. Okay, so we go like this. I'm gonna shorten this script up, and I'm gonna kind of think about how to do it in a lab setting. All right, so here's our Revit flying in. Do you remember what we do here? Can you help me out? What do we do here? Because we're unwrapping. What's the next one? Internal element, good. Internal element. Now, next. Oh, this gets really good. Look at all this awesome stuff. Get parameter. Right there. Oops, not parameters. I can get ourselves in some serious trouble. Get parameter. Where's it at? Do you see how, I don't know who came up, it was in the name nomenclature committee at Revit API, but do you see some are get parameters, some are get underscore parameter? You see that? Okay, just live with it. It is what it is, okay? They'll probably never change it. All right, now, since we're kind of running methods on top of methods, is what we're doing, okay? So if we're running methods on top of methods, we have to use those braces again. Okay, so then here, we just say the built-in parameter, this is how they do it, okay? And then we want to get the base of the wall. Look at all these built-in parameters. There's thousands of, like 5,000 of them, but I happen to know that one's called wall underscore base. There's the Revit API docs. Google it. It has all the different built-in parameters. Okay, and here it is: wall offset, base offset. You see that? Okay, that gets it. Now we're gonna run. Now we're gonna use our special period again. Okay. So by the way, if we just wanted to get a value, then we would just say as double. Then that would just convert it to a number and kick it out. Got it? As double. But we don't want to do as double. We want to do, anyone throw it out there? Anyone? We want to set. Yeah, set. Okay, now this is also a method running on top of a method. So we got to go like this. And then in there, we got to give it a value that's changing. But do we type in 10 or 20 here? What will we do? Remember input coming in? Do you remember what was it? I should make a note that you can see this. In value, right? That's coming in, right? In value. It should be there. Intelligent typing is pretty good. Not invoke. Come on. In value. There it is. See it? In value. Boom. Boom. Close it. Are we done? No, we have to wrap it. We have to end it in the transaction. You see that? Okay. You got it? So in this case, what I'm going to do is I am going to make it a variable, only because if I make it a variable, do you see what I'm doing? Autodesk.db.revit.element, that means it's unwrapped. That's the type for unwrap. Got it? You answer your question? That's the type for unwrap. Autodesk.revit.db.element. I don't know why, because it's the Revit database. Revit database probably, that's why, okay? So that means unwrap, and I call it unwrap element, and then I make it an object because I have to kick it out of the transaction, and then I got to return it, you know, a separate deal there, right? Okay, so now what do I return? Actually, I don't need to do this, but I guess I will. Now, here's the thing for this. You open, okay, this is how this works. You feed in the element, you unwrap it, you pull it out, you set a value, right? It has now changed in the Revit database. So technically, all you need to return is that element that came in to begin with. You understand? Because you bring the element in, it gets changed on the spot, then just kick it back out. You see? So what would we return? You want me to do my interpretive dance again? Okay. We bring the element in, right? The element, we'll call it the element. We unwrap it, right? We change its value. It's now changed. It's changed now. So all we need to do is kick that element back out. So what are we returning? Want me to do it again? The element. That's right. This actually makes it really easy because we don't have to wrap the darn thing back up again. We are just returning the element, which is right here. Return in Revit element. Yes, in Revit element, but I'm getting an error here. Why am I getting an error? In value, hold on. In value, go get parameter, Revit element, internal element, get parameter, element, unwrapped element. I don't think I need to do this. There we go. Okay, because I wasn't defining that variable I made. Got it? That's why, I hope. Build solution, started, succeeded. How we doing on time? Okay, that took about 10 minutes. All right, everyone still with me? Yeah, am I moving too fast, too slow? Just right? Okay, any questions while we queue this up? Yes? Oh, no, we're good, okay. Sure. In the lab, I'll probably have preset Revit files that they open so that you don't have to build a wall every time. That seems to make sense to me. I started doing that, but I didn't do it for everything. So anyway, okay. View 3D. I'll tell you what, I geek out when I get something to work. When a node works and it's changing the database, oh, smoke, I go crazy. Okay, so let's see. This base offset value maybe right now is at 8 feet. Yeah? Okay, let's see what happens. Do you remember our built-in parameter was called like wall underscore base something, offset base or something? Yeah? That's what we're changing, remember? And then we just kick the element back out again. We didn't need to wrap it up. It's kind of a trick actually, but done all the time. Okay, so yes, I'm gonna load the DLL every time. I like to do this too because I can check and see if the date has been changed. That is critical. Cool. It's a minute old. Yeah, set parameter. Ooh, there's our in value. There's our in Revit element. Yes? Okay, so let's do it. Revit selection. Selection. And by the way, my style is to be very hands-on demo. So I don't do a lot of PowerPoint. Yeah, it's just kind of all pick and click. I hope you're okay with that. All live demo for me, which means things can crash and mess up. But. Okay, so now we did not put a default on this, did we? Okay, here's a quiz if you've been listening. If I wanted to put a default on that value, how would I do it? Where? You're a programmer, aren't you? You can't answer. You're not? Okay. Yep, I put it right here. Let's say you always want it to be equal to 0. You would go equal 0 right there. Yeah. Okay. I don't see why you'd probably want to do that, but you could. I'm just saying. Okay. Okay, so we're going to feed in this. We're going to say, I don't know what, -10. And pull here for dramatic effect. Yes? Bang. Slider. See, now when you built this, you're like, that's mad. Right? You're like, oh man, how do we do this? I guess we can go minimum, what, -30, 50 plus 0, right? There we go. And then just kind of, just do this all day and bask in the awesomeness of C# coding, right? You don't think that's cool? No one? Come on now. How cool is that? Yeah? Come on now. You ever give applause here? Okay. Don't force it. Don't force it. I need to know if it's genuine. I'm taking notes here. All right. Would you say anything I showed you so far is like overly complicated? I mean, in concept. You know why? This is my opinion. Dynamo very much mirrors C# coding and the way C# coding is. You have hard types, you have hard input ports, and you have hard returns. Yeah? So it's easier to grasp this, I think, in my opinion. And Zero Touch was set up this way. The developers actually built Zero Touch this way. There's other ways to make custom nodes with C#. They're called UI nodes. They're rather complicated. But Zero Touch was built this way to really make it simple. And so my job, I'm hoping, is to bring it to the masses. Some people disagree with me and think it should only be for coders, but I say, that's what people told me in 2014 when they said Dynamo should be for everybody. And I said, we'll see about that. Okay, cool. How we doing on time? Oh man, by the way, these examples, I'm flying through them. I love it. Okay, so now, where are we? Okay, so you want to kick it up a notch? Oh boy. Okay, so we set, hey, we got 3 more. Want to see 3 more? Okay. Now, let's abandon the walls. Let's review, okay? We pulled a value off the wrapped element, one that was sharpied on the side. Do you remember what it was? What was it? What type did we pull off? Category. Remember? The category is written on outside of the wrapped element. So this is the category. It's walls, right? They send you a pretty. I'm going to actually do this. I'm going to get a big box I can drive to Vegas with this from LA. I'm going to build it. I'm going to get a huge wrapped box. I'm going to write on their walls on the outside. I'm going to write other things on the outside so that you don't need to unwrap it to get that data. Element comes in, press period, boom. You can read everything on the outside of the shell of the wrapper. Yeah? Okay, so we got category, which was on the outside of the wrapper. I'm trying to review so we can see where we're going. Next, we peeled open the wrapper. We pulled out the, what's the name of that thing? The what? Internal element. Yep, that's the scientific way of saying it, I suppose. Also, some people call it the unwrapped element. Okay, throw that out at your next Dynamo party next month. You know, you're just like, hey, did you unwrap that element? Yeah. No, I didn't need to, because it was on the wrapper. Oh my gosh, right? Start throwing that stuff. I'd be like, oh, you're the cool crowd. Okay, so pull the internal element out, right? Got the ID. Okay, internal element / unwrapped element, right? The next thing we did, I suppose, was we got the wall. I told you how to get a parameter. You would just do build, right? And then internal element, and then get the parameter as double. And then we set it. Remember that? We actually got the internal element, and we said get parameter. It's called get parameter. Built-in parameter dot set, and then we feed in the value. Yeah, yeah. But we had to wrap that in what? Because we're changing the Revit database. A what? A transaction, okay? I didn't show you, but I could actually go to undo and undo the transaction because it's written in the transaction. So the undos you see are actually the names of the transactions. A little tidbit for you. That's not always the case, but you know, in general, that's the case. Okay, so we've changed the Revit database. We read the wrapped element. We read the unwrapped element. What's the next thing we can do? Let's build an element. What do you say? Yeah? Like, yeah, let's build it. Yeah, I mean, it's no big deal. No, it is a big deal. Let's build an element. Let's build one of the I try to think of the easiest thing to build with coding is a level, okay? Because a level only needs one input, which is elevation, okay? You could build a wall. I could. In fact, I spent like a week and a half trying to rationalize how to build a wall, but it has too many inputs for a lab. So we're going to do a level, okay? So everyone want to build a level? You know what the cool thing about building a level is we get to take it all full circle, which means we bring it in, we unwrap it, okay? Oh, not quite. You don't unwrap it. You build it, you wrap it in a transaction, and guess what you do? You what? What do you do? You wrap the level up, and then you send it out, okay? You want to see how to wrap? Okay, let's do it. I might cut down that monologue because it seemed a little long, but I got a little excited there. Okay, I got to press play again. Okay, let's do it. Let's build a level. Build it. And then we'll build a Dynamo point. Woo, but we'll do that next. Okay, so those are our 3 examples. Ready? Here we go. Okay, so since we're building it from scratch, are we changing the Revit database? You have to ask yourself these questions. If I'm building it from scratch, am I changing the Revit database? Yes or no? Yes, so what do I have to wrap it in for? What do I have to bound it by? Let's not call it wrap. What do I have to bound it by? A transaction, right? You have to ask yourself these questions, don't you? Okay, am I building the level from scratch? Yes. Am I changing the database? Yes. So what does it have to be surrounded by? A transaction. You have to open it, build the wall, close it, okay? So that's the first thing we have to do. And I already did that here, so don't worry about it. Here it opens it, right? Here it closes it, okay? Whoop-de-doo, okay? Got it? So let's create the level. It's pretty easy. All you do is you say, you gotta give it a, okay. How do I explain this? Okay, so when you want to build an element in Revit, you have to start at the very beginning. So you have to do, and it's an unwrapped element. Would you agree that if you build an element in Revit, in Dynamo, if you build an element from zero touch, from scratch, that by its very nature, it's unwrapped? It is the internal element because you haven't wrapped it yet, okay? Does that make sense? Okay, so when you build something from scratch in zero touch, it is inherently unwrapped. If that's the case, then you build it from this, which is, do you remember that gentleman there? He asked this, Autodesk.db, Revit.db, yeah? Level, level, getting excited. Okay, now we're creating, see what we got. Oh my gosh, unwrapped elements have so much cool stuff. Can anyone guess what I'm going to choose? What method? Create. Okay, now you can hover over this and it's going to tell you, you can't hover. You actually have to put the parentheses, and once you do that, it'll tell you the input. It's hard to read, but it says, I need a document. And you already got that here. Doc, got it, just with that standard whatnot. So you put in doc, and then you put in the input, which is in elevation. Do you see why you do that? Do you see what this is? This is the creation method. The period, dot create, you put these, it tells you exactly what you need. You need a document, I got it. You need an elevation, got that too. I'm feeding that in, boom, put it in there, okay? So, I'm going to zoom in so you can see this. Okay, so I'm just going to put in a doc, which is the document. 99% of the time, if you look on the internet, it's usually called doc. Okay. And then you put a parenthesis, a comma, and you just put in what? What am I going to put in here? Kind of look through the code of what we learned, and anyone want to answer me? What would I put in here? This is the elevation of the level. So what would I put in? Would I put in 10 here? I could if I wanted just, I'll be hard coded at 10, right? Or what could I do? Who said that? Okay, we got to have someone else say that. In value. In value, is that what you were going to say? Were you going to say that? It's not in value. Anyone else? In elevation, very good. In elevation. Okay, awesome. Anyone who's hiring Dynamo experts, please hire this person. Okay. Ooh, boom, done. That's it. That's it. All done. I have to make it an object, and I'll tell you why. Okay? Because anyone guess why I have to make it an object? I have to return it, but before I return it, I have to new level dot, what do I got to do to it? We built it from scratch. It's done. But before I send it out, right? Nothing came in, no element came in, so I can't cheat and send that back out, right? I wrap it. I wrap it, okay? And the way you wrap it, instead of it being internal element, it's not external element. I wish it was. It's called, there's debate about why it's called this all over the planet. It's called 2DS type, which actually makes sense to me. I was a critic of it first, but it makes sense to me. And then you have to say true or false. If it was built within zero touch, you have to say false, which means Revit doesn't own it yet. It's kind of the thing. You have to say false. It's called 2DS type because that stands for 2 design script type. Design script is kind of another name for the Dynamo environment, right? So that really says 2DS type. You are now wrapped with the Dynamo wrapper, okay? And then we just return that. It's false because it's a little hard to explain, but it's false because that's an input the method needs to run, and it says I'm false if I am created within the program. So the node creates it, it's false, because that means, is it Revit owned, question mark? This means, has Revit owned this element before? That's the question. Well, no, because it's being created right here on the spot. So it has never owned it before, which is important, don't you think? It's good to know that, yeah? Especially if someone across the office is your work sharing, right? You want to know that, I would think. Okay, cool, how are we doing with time? I love that, I love that question. I'll explain that a little bit more. Okay, is it Revit owned right now? No. Has Revit owned it in the past? No. Will Revit own it when this is run? Yes, but you say false right now. Does that answer your question? Okay, cool. I'm just gonna cheat and just say return. I won't make another object. Are you okay with that? Is everyone okay with that? Just return. I'm not gonna, I could say, I probably should. What type is this? Since this is now wrapped, it is now Revit.elements.element. It is not Autodesk.Revit.db. Sorta. Okay. So if I was going to make an object, I'd have to state the type. What's the type of this? We just wrapped it. What's the type of this? It is Revit.elements.element. That's the name of the wrapped type. Yeah. Okay. I probably should explain that a little better. Okay. Let's give it a try. Ready? How cool is this? Build. Everyone still with me? Huh? Okay. Good. You're getting a little quiet. Oh man. Okay. Any questions while I do this? Yes, that is correct. Do you hear that question? It's just a reiteration of what I was telling this gentleman. What's your name there, sir? This one here on the phone? What's your name? Okay. Sorry. What is it? Giovanni. Oh, right. Giovanni. And what's your name? Ned. Okay. Giovanni was asking that kind of same question. It's just a reiteration of that. So I'm trying to repeat the question and answer it, but it was just a reiteration of what Giovanni said. Okay. Okay. I'll make a note to have one set up for here. So for building a level, then I should go to an elevation view. right? Okay, here, I'm gonna delete some of these. Okay, so let's make a level at level 10. What do you say? Does that sound cool? Like, how exciting, right? Because we wrapped that darn thing up. I wanna see if it works. By the way, if you send an unwrapped element out to Dynamo, it is not happy at all. Has anyone ever seen it ever say Autodesk.db, Autodesk.revit.db something? Anyone ever seen that as an output coming out ever? That means that darn thing wasn't wrapped. That's what that means, okay? So now you know. So next time when you're at your next Dynamo party, you'd be like, can you please wrap that up for me? That makes no sense. You're like, you know what wrapping is? Of course we know what wrapping is. You're exposing the internal element. What are you doing? It's in the Rev Dynamo environment. You're supposed to 2DS type that stuff. Come on. Yeah. I'd be like, whoa. Awesome. Is there a node you can port it through? The answer, is there an auto wrap node is what you're asking? Yes, in fact, I made one, but I found it completely useless. Because if you're not conscious of what's wrapping and unwrapping, thank you. If you're not conscious of what you're wrapping and unwrapping, then you're not doing it right, in my opinion. Okay. Okay, really quick. Hang with me, okay? Hang on. You got your butts to catch. Just hang on. Okay, check the date. Cool. I'm gonna have to speed this example up because I am taking a while on it. I'll figure that out internally how I do that. Okay, so elevation, right? That's all it needs. Wouldn't you say that's a pretty easy creation method? Yeah, just takes one input. 10. We're in feet. 10. A name of what? Create ZT level? Is that what you're asking? Okay. I'll answer that, Giovanni. It's a very quick question. Thank you. What is the name of the level? Okay. See, you made me do it. Okay, I'll answer this because I think this is important. And I'll have to think about it. I'll think about like how I'll have how it's done. Why do I have two open? I don't like that. I don't have two open. Okay, wait, before we answer that, okay, what is going on? Do I have three open? What is going on here? I don't like this, but okay, I don't know what happened. I must have undone or something. Okay, anyway, so you see this create, when you click in here, this one happens to only have one creation method. So, but some have a few. So like a wall create, a wall.create may have like wall by face, and then it has 5 inputs, or it's like wall by line, and it has 6 inputs. They're called parameters. You know, this one happens to have 1, so there is no way to programmatically make a name change on the method itself. It wasn't programmed that way. Okay, there wasn't another one here that said comma name. Yes, it just didn't. Revit, the developers didn't do that. Okay, so in that case, since there's no way to do it, you would have to build the level and then change the name with a few more nodes, right? No biggie, right? But that's just the way it is. But because you're exposing the API, you now know, right? You're actually like, hey, can you put a name on that? Well, actually, I can't because it's not exposed in the API. You'd be like, whoa. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Does that answer your question, Ryan? Okay. Ready? Here we go. Boom, boom. Oh, there it is. It gave level 8. It actually, by default, will take the next one. Okay, or you can, I don't know, you can go like 100, maybe 20. Like you can make a list. See? Cool. I'm sorry. Oh, hold on. Just let me say this. So now when you look at the levels that are created, this is a beautiful thing. Do you see these green things? Do you know what that means? that means that this element has been wrapped. When you see that green ID for the element level on the instance level, thank you, see you later. It means it's been wrapped. Yeah, that's what also that means. So you're talking to your friend, you're talking to the next Dynamo party, and you're like, oh, you see, you wrapped that up. I'm like, I sure did. I wrapped the heck out of it. Yeah. Yeah. Good? Everyone happy with that? Okay, cool. Now I'm going to take a step back. I'm going to debate if I should do this in this order, but what we've been doing so far is we found Marcelo's age, and we've been dealing with the Revit database. But Dynamo has its own geometry, right? Did you ever build a Dynamo point or a Dynamo line? I'm going to show you how to build a point just so you get it, so you can actually build a Dynamo point, because you can. It's okay. It's actually mirrors design script. Anyone use design script? When you build a point, you say point dot by coordinates, and you put those parentheses. You're technically running a method, aren't you? 0, 0, 0. It's the same thing. Okay, so it exposes it pretty cleanly in. Okay, hang on. Dynamo point. I have an example where I build a grid, but I'm not going to do that mentally. There's no time for that. Okay, it's really. So now the type for this is, okay, so do you remember a wrapped element was Revit.elements.element was the type, and unwrapped was Autodesk.db.revit.element. Remember that? Okay, you don't need to wrap or unwrap Dynamo geometry, because inherently it's already wrapped, always. It's always wrapped, because Dynamo, it's Dynamo stuff. So you never have to wrap it, because Dynamo understands it. However you look at it, whether it's wrapped or not, I don't know. But you don't have to do that monkey business. So it makes it a lot easier. Okay. So what you do is you say, so that type is called Autodesk.DesignScript.Geometry. And that's where you can build all your stuff. You press this. Do you remember the geometry button? It's got arc, line, NURB, point. Anyone else? Yeah, curve, NURB curve, surface, NURB surface, right? That's all this stuff. Okay, so Autodesk.DesignScript.Geometry will give you the type. In this case, point, and then this is everything we all done. You do another point, right? And this is called the constructor. How do you want to build it? By coordinates. And isn't this really the same thing we've been doing? But now you kind of build it first circle, like when you do design. Anyone done design script, built a point in design script? Come on, you can't. This is not an answer. Come on now, do it. Okay, so it's the same thing. It's just in design script they lopped this part off. Yeah. Okay, but in here we add it. I mean, some people program with just that, but I always add it, and then you wrap it in a method. Okay, that's it. So what does it need? It needs and then so it needs three input. It needs three doubles, right? X, Y, and Z value. So if you look up here, I put in double in X, in Y, in Z, and just for kicks, I made a default equal to what? 1, not 0, just because it's our Dynamo node, not the default Dynamo node. That's sometimes I do that just to give a little signature on it. All right. So then we got to put these in X, comma, in Y, comma, in Z. Okay, and then we close it off. Okay, and then let's go way back to the beginning. So 1 hour and 15 minutes ago, what do we need to do once we do this? We return it. What do we return? That object, right? I can make that an object and say Autodesk.DesignScript.point equals point out. I mean, dot or space point out equals this. But I can just put a return here, right? I'm just going to do that. But for time, I'm going to do that. But I usually don't do that because I like to return actual objects. But you understand, right? We return that. You cool with that? Okay, I'm going to build this. And I get to go back to Sandbox. Why do I get to go to Sandbox? If you've been listening. That's right. We are not touching that Revit database in any way. So we can use Sandbox. New. I still got to add it in like this. But you can make a package if you want. I'll talk about that in a minute for auto load. But you always have to close Revit and Dynamo every time, okay? Because if I were to run this and Revit and Dynamo were open and I were to build the solution, it would say, solution build unsuccessful, cannot write to database because there's an active program, okay? That's why you have to close Dynamo and Revit. You got it? Okay. Woo! I'm actually pretty happy. I think we're moving along nicely. Okay, check the date. Good. Minute behind. Boom. Dynamo point. You see that? Go with that. And look, the defaults are 1, 1, and 1. You don't think that's cool? I think that's so cool. Okay, let me show you one more. So I was like, let's take this to the extreme because you know how I am. I change this. Let's see this bad boy right here. Okay, let me guess what this thing is. Okay, so it's just points, surfaces, lines, and forms, right? Look at this. Oh, come on now. Really? Uh-oh. Oh, here it is. Whew. Got me nervous. Yay, watch this. I should have built it probably. Okay, pretend I built it because I think it's still here. Okay. New load. There it is. Hey, the Dynamo cow. Yay. Wait, it goes even further. Look, I made an input port. Remember how to do an input port? Anyone? Remember in the parentheses in the method, right? Here I made a head rotation default 0. Remember how to do a 0? Remember how to do default? Anyone? What do? You put equals to 0, right? In the parameter, in the parameter of the method, yeah? Okay, watch, here's 33. Boom. Oh, so cool. All right, so the point is that you can build a point and work up to a cow. You can pull a category off a wrapped element and work your way up to something awesome. You can unwrap an element, pull an ID, and get beautiful information. You can unwrap the internal element and you can get all these beautiful parameters. You can unwrap and look at the internal element and you can set all these amazing parameters, right? When you set, you have to wrap, you have to bound it in a transaction, right? Or you can build something from scratch, right? You build something from scratch, you're changing the database, make sure you bound it in a transaction, right? And then when you're done, you better wrap that thing back up and then send it out, right? Because it's by nature unwrapped, right? But you don't have to build a level, right? You could build something great, like an entire building if you like, right? It all starts with that single point, and then you end up with something like a cow. Okay, how'd we do? Any questions? Thank you. Woo. All right. Thank you. We got the recording? How'd we do on time? Hour, what? So what does that mean? An hour and a half exactly? From when I started talking? Okay, got to cut that back down a little bit. But thank you everyone for helping. Yes, I'm going to hang around for just a little bit. I got to catch my BART train in at about 8, but I'll hang around. Do you have a question? Maybe you want to hear this a little bit? Yes. Ask the question again. I didn't quite get it. Oh. Did you hear that question? Absolutely, but it'll require a different method. So you can build it, and then you can change the name because it's already exposed. You can change the name, which would be built-in parameter, change name or something, dot set, and then do that, and then have that as a separate input port. Absolutely. Did you hear his question? It was a great question. No, it's not. It can be in the same. It could be in the same transaction. Yes, yes. It would have to be. Okay, hold on. You have to think. Anytime you code, okay, you have to think about what is my final node going to look like. That's what you have to first ask yourself. Am I going to have two nodes, one that builds the level and then one that changes the name? Or am I going to have one node that has two input ports, one in elevation and one in name? That will determine completely differently how you code. Now, in the first case, if you want to have two separate nodes, you would make two separate methods, right? Because the method is also a standalone node. So you'd make one called make level, you'd wrap it up, send it out, and you'd have another one called, it would get the input element, and it would be called, I don't know, change name of level coming in, yeah? That would be that case, two separate methods, right? So a namespace, a class, yeah? Method one, like we just did, and then another method under that same class. That would change the name of the element coming in. Okay, that's one scenario. But you want the other scenario, which probably Giovanni wants, which is you want two input ports, right? So in that case, you make one method called make level change name. That's the name of the method. In there has two input parameters. One is level. One is elevation and one is level name. Okay, and then in there, in one transaction, you have two separate functions. You have one that first creates the element, and you make that an object, element meaning level. You make that object, you make that level an object. Then you take that object, which is a level, and then you change the name, yeah, by dot get parameter, built-in parameter, I don't know, whatever it is, change name, whatever, dot set, and then the input on that set is the one coming from the name of the method at the top. Yeah, that's one transaction. Then you wrap the element, and then you send it out. Does that answer your question? Okay, I don't think I have time for that in the talk, but yes, the reason is because I didn't want to get into, I'm doing single things. I didn't want to do multiple things because, you know, I can't show everyone how to build a cow. I can show everyone how to build a point, and then you can kind of go, okay, I can do a point, then I can do a surface, I can do a point, then I can do 2 points. If I can do 2 points, then I can do a line between the points because these are objects now. If I can do a line between the objects, I can do 3 points. Now I can do the line between 3 points. Now I can do the line between 20 points. Now I have a form for this one. Okay, now I'm going to make a whole other set of points and a whole other set of lines. Now that I have those as objects, then I can feed those curves as a list into my form creation tool, and then it just lofts the skin across the body. You see, so you have to kind of build on it. But that's an awesome question. Is that kind of clear to everyone? Cool. Any other questions? Yeah. Oh, yes. So feel free to leave, but I'll be hanging around. Yeah.
Nomenclature is a little bit,
right.
What do you call the first few?
Using statements at the top. Using statements. Yeah. Using statements. They're Google it. They're just using statements are a convenience for the programmer. You technically don't need any using statements. Anybody? You technically don't need using statements.
So for example, if I delete the using.
You can delete them all. You can delete it, but you have to type everything out longhand.
Right.
Anything else? Just Ned.
Your handout for getting
Handouts and data sets will be available on the AU website after AU sometime. Okay, we're going to refrain from putting this out on recording because we have to respect Autodesk class that's coming up. Okay, is that your question?
Yeah, I just want to.
Of course you do. Yeah, do it, man.
Well, thank you.
Welcome. Was that helpful?
Last time I saw you was the class of the objects that move, like in Revit.
Oh, okay.
That's probably the best.